I would love to just have the audience know about you a little bit better, maybe 30 seconds each, just walking through very quickly your own background, and we will get started from there. We'll start with Karthi.
All right. So I think I have a, a very composite career, starting from technology, design, strategy, product, entrepreneurship, and investment. This is pretty much what I have been through. Currently building a makers ecosystem called Experian. That's keeping me busy.
Great. Krishna, you want to go next?
Yeah. So I'm Krishna, co-founder and CEO of Mintical. Primarily 20 years of product experience, and this is my fourth startup. So I have been in startup ecosystem since 2000. So I've done hardware startups, software startups, advertising startups, and this is a startup where I'm finally started it from scratch and running it. So thank you.
Awesome. Vikram?
Yeah, hi Rendran and rest of the panel. I'm Vikram. I head product at Goodworker currently. Goodworker is a platform that seeks to transform blue collar lives via rich data and access to services including jobs, financial services, and so on. Prior to this, I've worked for over 17 years in product management, 10 years in the Bay Area in various startups, and then about close to a decade here in India, starting with. So great to be here.
Awesome. That's our panel for you. Clearly, very very deep perspectives that they will bring to the table from their varied background. And to introduce myself, I lead product and tech for Flipkart. I have the privilege of working with an extremely talented team of product managers, data scientists, engineers, building for the several hundred million large internet shopper base in India. So that's about the panel. So now delving right into the topic, I wanted to direct a question to each of you, kind of like aligning with your background to bring out your perspectives in that regard. So maybe the first question then is we'll start with Karthi. So, Karthi, at Experian, you are building an ecosystem of courses, community, and consulting coming together to help makers and businesses with the full spectrum of design, product, no code, and leadership. So, with that vantage point, you would have seen and worked with various businesses across multiple domains. And how do you see the mindset in terms of aspirations as well as skills that our founders are now bringing to the table, builders and businesses in India? How has it evolved over time? What in your opinion have been the tailwinds for this from a talent mindset and any other perspectives that you would like to share?
Sure thing. So before Experian, I was consulting. So basically, I was in the business of fish. And slowly I realized that, oh, fish is not enough. We need to go fishing. And we started teaching about, okay, how can we do design, work in an integrated product team? And now we are recognizing more and more that fishing is also not enough. We need to go and take care of the fishermen. It is the other part of the whole equation. So when we are thinking about fishing fishermen, naturally we are forming an ecosystem, and it's like responding to what is happening in the evolutionary cycle of our product ecosystem, I think. So that's pretty much how Experian was born. And now with Experian, what we are uh, seeing as a struggle, I mean, the skill set is not a problem. It can be taught. Tool set is not a problem either. It can be kind of taught, trained at least. But mindset is one thing we are struggling to bring it in, because a product mindset needs to be completely different ballgame compared to a service model. And that's the biggest thing that we are not able to bring, but working towards that transformation through experience, putting them into scenario case studies, things like that. But mindset is the bigger game, I think, which is once that is set. In my pie chart, mindset looks 25%, skill set is 20, and tool set is 5. I think we are missing 75%. And that's a big problem to solve.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great perspective. I think it's not about tools or skills. It's more about the mindset and how do we shift the mindsets, sets, right? So we'll talk further about that. So now maybe I'll switch over and direct a question at you, Krishna. So as the CEO of one of our big success stories out of India in the SaaS space, right? You would have experienced your global clients over a period of time, and how have their trust and belief in products coming out of regions that are not traditionally the SaaS hubs, right? How has that changed over time? And what is your outlook for being the SaaS hotspot for the world in the future? India being the SaaS hotspot for the world in the future. Would love to hear your perspectives on that, Krishna.
Oh, sure. So I think there are like two or three interesting trends that have happened, like, right? So which we can discuss, and then how that has evolved and also helping India. So one is, historically also we are known for our product and engineering qualities, right? So even the large startups or companies, they were always using India from since, like, I don't know what, 95, 2000. So the product was still being done in India, but yes, obviously it was conceptualized and envisioned in US, right? Because we always had that kind of thing where most of the people in US used to grow to the highest level of VP of engineering, right? Something like that, which over a period of time changed. And as we, more and more people got connected to the business, they realized that they can do more. Where earlier very low level of product came to India, then a little bit higher, like even in the captive centers, the quality improved. So in general, I think there was a gradual I mean, everybody knew like India can produce and is producing. It was just a matter of time that can you get the complete thing out of India. That was one. Second thing is, because of SaaS, and now, like, SaaS is a relatively more, a lot of fears are taken away. You are SOC 2 compliant, you have GDPR, you are working on, like, Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud, which are very standardized, safe interfaces. So I mean, generally, like, those kind of things, I mean, are taken care of, like, fears of malware and all those kind of things. So even there are like a standardization on top of which you are building, right? So that was the second thing which helped. And then the third part is, in general, now most globally the companies are actually not only coming out of US. I mean, we have seen great companies coming out from Poland, like, right, or London or Israel and India. So what is happening is people are able to connect to the business problem and provide a solution. The world is eager to get that. The world is right now looking for solutions. So honestly, the software word is gone. Like, I mean, it's not software anymore. It is solution. Like, technology is given. 20 years back, it was a wow thing. Like, right, today, I mean, like, yes, mobile app or or any things are there. So in general, like, the first answer is no. I think the word is surely accepting, as long as you are solving a problem, and a good high quality product doesn't matter. You don't even really know under the hood where it is being developed and planned for. That is one. Second part, I am extremely bullish on SaaS as another thing in India, not because we are one of the companies, but if you see the India's trend, like 92, 93, we were the first one to get into services business. In India, is, you need one spark and then there is a fire, right? So that happened, and we absolutely like took a major chunk of outsourcing work, right? Then somebody came in and showed us, like, oh, obviously you are part of it, like the Flipkart, right? Like, oh, you can create products for India, in India, for consumer market. And like, you can talk about Flipkart and Myntra and Ola and Paytm of the world. I mean, there was one, and then there's now many. SaaS, I think Freshworks has already proven it. Like, we have done an IPO, showed what the word looks like, and I'm already seeing a lot of good startups coming, right? So earlier there were only few, like Mindical, ChargeBees, Freshworks, but now I think this decade is going to be, we are going to, I mean, we have got the tipping points will happen.
Absolutely. I think that's a great perspective. I think, as you very, very elegantly put it, right? We were always building for the world in the captive centers, even as far back as the mid to late 90s. So there was no question about talent and our ability to build global products. It was about actually breaking out of the mindset and actually having the belief. And of course, as you pointed out, some of the building blocks that are available now through cloud technologies have enabled some of those problems to be taken care of under the hood. And then now it is about just creating solutions and being focused on your vision. So that's a fantastic perspective, Krishna. So now maybe I'll move on and ask Vikram a question from his perspective as a product leader. So Vikram, you're a seasoned product leader. You have led product teams across so many varied domains such as fintech, edutech, fashion and lifestyle, and others. So, how do you develop customer empathy and a deep understanding of your consumers' need states when building global products out of India? So, what
Yeah.
are the best practices that are emerging ventures in this space have to take note of, and as they aspire to build these kind of world class products out of India? So, any tips, techniques, best practices that you would want to share from a product mindset, product thinking perspective to our founders and teams?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Jayendran. I think in addition to the mindset issues that Karthi and Krishna have already covered, it's very important that once you have the mindset, you go about building the product the right way, right? I think one quote that I read somewhere that's really stayed with me is users, are not dying to engage with or adopt your products, right? They are dying to solve their problems, right? So all they're interested in is solving their problems. They're not really interested in appreciating how great your product is, right? So I think another way of putting it is they don't want to create smart playlists, right? They want a listening device that plays what they want when they want, right? So the smart playlist doesn't mean anything to them, right? So which brings us back to how do we kind of get to this point where we really understand what they want, right? So I think a grounds up understanding of the market and the problems that the users are facing is extremely important for building products that are extremely relevant and engaging, right? So that means while I think the awareness about UX is growing. I think the work doesn't start with UX design. It actually starts one, maybe many steps before. And I use a framework called JTBD, which has been extremely, helpful to me and my teams in trying to structure problems and figure out what problems to actually solve, right? So JTBD is a pretty old framework. It came out of PNG. For those folks who want to go deeply into JTBD, there's lots of literature out there in Medium. But yeah, JTBD is one framework that's really helped us because what that helps us is it helps us stay and really figure out the problem, structure the problem before we start coming up with solutions, right? And as you structure the problem, as you go deeper into the problem, that's when you really understand the problems that users face, right? So, for example, in the early days of UGC, user-generated content, when we were building communities and so on, there was an overemphasis or an over investment on creator tooling from day one, right? But of course, as time progressed and as people figure out behaviors, they figure out the 110-90 rule, which is 1% of your creators, and it's very important to not pollute the user experience for the rest of the community by overemphasizing the creation part. And then of course, the creation you have ways of dealing with that 1% who will actually create, right? So I think that was one learning. But I think one is obviously having this user research, user design thinking as an approach. The other is also being very data oriented, right? So as you try and peel the onion and structure the problems, it's very important to be data driven. And so how do you kind of stack rank the most important problems to solve? That has to be based on an objective view of the value that the user is going to get from the problem being solved. So I think part of JTP is also attaching a sort of objective value and using data to stack rank the problems you're trying to solve. And of course, it doesn't stop there. The data orientation has to go into the product as well. So as you build out the product, you may have got a 60 to 80% understanding of the user's problems, but how do you kind of build a product that iterates really fast and grows really fast, right? So how do you kind of bake in instrumentation and frameworks like A/B testing and so on right from the beginning, so that you're not only depending on qualitative user research but also on ground usage and adoption data to drive the iterations. Yeah, so those would be some of the areas I would focus on. Jayendran, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know how it got muted. Thank you. So great points, Vikram. I think we also, by the way, use the JTBD Jobs to be Done framework extensively in our product thinking. And yeah, I mean, extensive use of best-in-class frameworks, instrumentation, data, thinking about A/B testing always, and doing continuous iteration and improvements and experimentation. These kind of will stand the test of time, even if you're building products for audience who are domestic or global, right? So that's a great look at it. So now going to kind of the second part of our discussion, right? So since this is part of the talent track, I wanted to focus a question on that particular aspect. Um, so from a talent perspective, of course, we all know that our talent is best in class. In fact, I mean, around the world, we are seeing that our talent is actually ruling in terms of leadership roles in technology companies, and not just leadership roles, like, I mean, thought leadership as well as variety of roles, right? So we know that we have always had the talent. But for people, building products out of India. So how do we actually think about as an ecosystem? How do we all think about seeding and growing this talent base to be even more deeper and broader? And what would be needed would be across multiple disciplines, right? It's not only product. It will be about design thinking. It will be about deep user research, of course, about product management as well, and also equally about architecture and building talent that can build for the world, the scale that is required for building for the world. So from that perspective, if we set ourselves very ambitious goals as an ecosystem on building global products, what should the key stakeholders in the ecosystem, right? Academic institutions, government, from a startup enablement point of view, investors, existing ventures, how should we all think about it? And any thoughts to share there? And before that, I mean, look at it. We have ambitious goals to become a $1 trillion digital economy, right? By 2025 or thereabouts. And a lot of that has to actually happen through product-led growth. And while, of course, a lion share of it will still keep coming from both services-led economy as well as also digitization of local consumption. And that story obviously is growing very strongly. We also need to have a strong play in product-led growth and export-oriented growth, which is coming from global products that we build. Right. So how should we, in that context, think about deepening and broadening our talent base to be able to do this at scale? Right. So maybe I'll go with the same question to each of you, and maybe you can share your perspective. Maybe we'll go in the reverse order of what we did last time. So we'll start with Vikram this time. Vikram.
Yeah. And I think, again, goes back to, I think, fundamentally mindset, Jan. And I think, I will focus on what our academic institutions can do to, really help build up product thinking. So to me, in the end, it's not about having product managers, right? It's about ensuring that people are really thinking in terms of product. And what does that really mean, right? To me, first and foremost, it's a focus on doing versus thinking, right? Basically that culture of doing has to be kind of, inculcated. And this starts from academic institutions, right? There's definitely an overemphasis on theoretical knowledge. So, I mean, there's this famous quote, right? There is no difference in theory and practice, except that in reality, there's a big difference, right? So, which means that you don't really, understand some of the concepts that you're learning or some of the things that you think you understood until you actually implement it in practice. So, I think that is key. Acceptance of failure, the acceptance of failure, because creativity in the end is essentially comes from that confidence, right? To accept failure. When you know that failure doesn't mean you're a complete failure, but it just means a stepping stone to success. That's when you become more and more creative because you take chances, you take risks, right? So as an essential aspect of creativity is not being afraid to fail, right? So I think that again is an important trait that can be built up from academic institutions. One big thing is taking out hierarchical thinking, right? I think that again comes in the way of building truly global products, right, and not me too follower products. Right? So I think that again has to be inculcated at the academic level, where conviction and courage has to be encouraged, right? So if somebody has courage and conviction, they shouldn't be punished or demonized just because of hierarchy issues, right? And I think, finally, there's also this need for speed and accuracy in academic institutions, which kind of comes in the way of truly understanding and learning things, right? So, for example, because of that need for speed, there's this, again, tendency to copy patterns. So the copy paste culture, embedded. Right? So I think again being able to get away from that copy paste culture and allowing people to really understand the context of why some ideas work rather than just copying the ideas. So really enabling critical thinking. So critical thinking is again a part of it, right? And extremely important for building good products. So these would be, I would say, some of the aspects that can be addressed by academic institutions.
Awesome, awesome. I really love that quote, by the way. I'm going to add it to my arsenal of quotable quotes, by the way, with your permission, if that's all right. So, and before we go on to get others' perspectives, I just want to remind our audience, please do add questions relevant to this panel's topic in the Q&A tab, and I can, at the end of the panel, direct some of them to our panelists. So with that, now we'll go back and Krishna, your perspectives on this question, please.
Because I think what Vikram mentioned are almost the right things that as a country we'll have to change on the fundamentals. I mean, we have really fundamental flaws. First of all, if you have to really build some things, I mean, you have to articulate. To articulate means to write and to means to express. If you see our education system, we have gone all the way to multiple choice questions, right? So it's all about the outcome that you get and not about the process. And unless you get that right, we are killing the creativity. So when you talk about the education institution, I mean, I find great people, but then they lack the, expressing themselves or even like articulating, right? And I can tell you like that creates a big impact. So that is one, right? Second thing is our entire being successful, at least for India, you can be successful by chalta hai, right? Because we have all seen Jugaad products. Jugaad doesn't work, like, right? Jugaad works in India, Jugaad doesn't work globally, right? So there's a fundamental mindset challenges, right? Third thing is, I always say that whatever is your strength is your biggest weakness. So engineering is our biggest strength. That is our biggest weakness because we completely jump to developing products. I mean, you come up with an idea, you don't even know who your buyer is, who you don't know why people should do it. And I think Karthi or Vikram was saying like, do you want to build a smart playlist or do you want to build a playlist that users will use? We are fascinated by the outcome of the engineering product or like or whatever that matter like thing that we will create and not by the usage. We assume that the usage will come automatically. So the simplification of thought process is fundamental change and that requires end-to-end thing like from school colleges investors asking question to everything. So I feel there's a lot that needs to be done, and in a culture where we emphasize only on outcomes the media has to change a lot. We only celebrate like this guy got 2 crore package and that guy got this thing and this company got 100 million funding. But what about the thought process? I mean, this is all about a fundamental mind shift and process. We have tons of smart people, but we need the processes and things to become sustainable and big. One or two exceptions will come, but I mean, yeah, I'll just pause here. It's a like I mean, it's more theoretical, but we have fundamental things to fix.
Absolutely, Krishna. I completely resonate with that. So, Karthi, your thoughts on this topic, please.
Yes, I have lots to say because as a designer, I am impatient and intolerant by profession. So there was this huge question on our education system sucks, our colleges suck, and that's pretty much where I also started. As a practitioner, I couldn't replace me because I couldn't find enough talent, and that's exactly where this idea of fishing came. So the first fishing I tried was actually going and teaching in all these institutes. So teaching design, teaching products, teaching that's no code and stuff like that. And that's when I could empathize what they were going through. First thing first, uh, our education institutes don't have these subjects. We don't have streams of design and product and no code and leadership. I mean, probably bits and pieces are available in probably these schools, and these days these schools are coming. But in all honesty, this is still an old curriculum, probably which was like 10 years old or 15 years old when I was studying human practice. So pretty much we are following that. So we have no clue what the industry is going on because none.
Looks like
Yeah, could be a network issue.
Yeah, looks like we lost Karti. I think while hopefully she'll rejoin back. But in the meantime, if we were to summarize, I heard a lot about encouraging creativity, conviction, courage, and figuring out how to, as an entire ecosystem, even celebrating some failures, right? So there is no fear of failure in the ecosystem, and updating some of our curriculums to be more oriented towards application and modernizing them. A lot of these themes have come through in terms of what all of you have shared. So now maybe I think I'll change tracks and ask a very different question, right? So we have talked a lot about building global products, and whenever we talk about that, typically the first thing that comes to mind is actually building SaaS products, right? So because we have had several successes in the recent past.
Sorry.
No problem. Did you want to finish your thought before we go on to the next topic?
Yes, I wasn't sure when I was thrown out, but what I was trying to say was we actually don't have streams, the streams that we are talking about in terms of product building, product thinking, design thinking. None of those exist, and our professors are not trained in the speed at which the industry is evolving. And we are asked to teach a subject like cognitive science in like 40 hours. You can't. I mean, it has to sink in, and it is a continuous learning process. So, because of this empathy, I realized that practitioners need to become teachers in many, many ways. Though it is a whole new world, but that's exactly is the path that I am in right now, where these are three problems that I'm saying. One, we don't know how to learn. And this can come from schools, colleges, workplaces, everywhere. We really don't know how we learn. So continuous learning is affected because of this. Two, we need to go into industry readiness. What industry wants and what we learn in theory are two different things. The speed at which the industry blazes is way too fast, and our academic institutions can't catch up with that. That is why now we are trying this cohort-based courses, self-paced courses, community-based learning, and social learning, and all of these things are definitely coming. Three is value thinking in terms of so not thinking as oh I'm going to be a product manager, I'm going to be a designer, I'm going to be a no coder. So taking all these titles and throwing it aside and just thinking what problem are we solving? Are we solving the problems using a pattern or using creativity? This matters a lot because this is more like running with responsibilities than with the roles. And I see that, a designer feels like I'm supposed to be the voice of the customer, but you are talking about it. This is pretty much what is happening. So we are making it into a silo, despite agile and all the manifestos that we have. So if we can do these changes, I think all aspects of our thinking, doing, and articulation will change. If I can add one last thing to that, that's an thing which I wanted to bring it on Vikram's point. Sorry, Krishna's point. The language of expression, articulation. We are working, especially as a product team, we are working with the CXO, and you need to be clear about what you're talking about. The language becomes a huge deal, and for some reason we are very shy and we are not trying these aspects. I feel strange for a country like us who are always trained in English. This is something that I'm noticing more in the product space than in other engineering. Didn't have this problem, right? So this is my view of what I have seen so far.
Thank you, Karthi. I think very well articulated. In fact, the audience seems to resonate quite a lot with some of the stuff that you said from the comments that I am reading. So, well put. So, since we don't have a lot of relevant questions for the panel, we have only about a minute and a half left. So, maybe just like a kind of a very quick question thrown at each of you, right? A bit of future gazing that I'm looking at. So we always talk about when we build global products, when we talk about global products out of India, we always talk about SaaS companies and a lot of the success stories that have come out. Of course, Mindtickle being represented here, but of course we have several others, right? Starting with Dhruva, we then have, in fact, even in the developer tooling space, we have now BrowserStack, we have Postman, and of course Zenoti, ChargeBee in the subscription payments, and very ERM and consumer in terms of relationship management space and all that. So there is a wide variety of startups that are coming up. and the SaaS community is obviously getting very vibrant. But what about the next Facebook, or rather, I should say Meta now, I suppose. Meta, the next Meta, or Insta, or WhatsApp, or Google coming out of India. I think, after all, we know that we have the talent. If, of course, as all of you pointed out, some of our thinking, mindset, curriculum, the ways of learning, etc., need to change. But that said, just very, very quick, 10 seconds each. Like, what is your future gazing prediction on when will we see the first global consumer internet product out of India?
I think,
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
I mean, a global exposure will be required because there is a lot of behavioral things which are required, right? So I'll just say that people need to be a lot more beyond the traditional education and then a lot of global travel. So once you see a lot of people who have traveled globally and understand people and not, just technology, then that will happen.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to make a bit of a bet because I think the next billion. I mean, when you start addressing the next billion in India, I think it's going to have tremendous consequences, right? Because if you look at some of the habits of the next billion, which is heavy reliance on video, voice, high use of non-English languages, basically being able to create applications that work in multiple different languages, the ability to kind of work on different kinds of phones. Right. I think these are very big challenges. If solved well, I think they have huge global potential. Right. Because I think, this will really lead to a global product that can work for everybody in every part of the globe on every sort of device. Right. I think and using, interactions that go beyond text and email and so on. Right. So I think by addressing the next billion in the right way, I think, we can build, hugely global products.
Awesome. Karthi, we are out of time, but very, very quick thoughts, please.
So I want to look at it differently. We have a next billion here locally. We have still not solved problems here, and we are going global. So there are two things that is here. One is the change, the other is the constant. The constant is your human nature. For next 1,000 years, we are not going to change. Our brain is not going to change. The way we, the behavior is not going to change. And the change is actually the emerging technologies. So, looking at this change and constant, I think it would be intelligence to really look at the constant and understand the human system completely. And based on what we have around us, let's solve problems. For example, your Paytm, Zerodha, these products are actually killing it. Probably it's not in the global scale, but locally they have really made a mark. And today, people don't want to trade with some ugly looking user interface, and that's a great win for us. I think we are really going in that path. If not global, I think we need to start local. The NBU stays here right now. We are already having 1.2 billion. So I think we should go local first. And I think maybe it will have a global impact because in a ripple, you first cause the change in the closer circle and then it goes far and wide. Probably that's one way to think about it. And our people need a lot more problems.
Thank you. With that, we come to a close. I want to thank my co-panelists. I learned a lot as well, and I hope that our audience as well benefited from all the insights that have been shared. Thanks, everyone. With that, we'll close.
Thanks, everybody.